Oh, hey guys. Welcome to this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. This week's guest, well, she's a professional 3-gun shooter. And let me tell you, I don't really know next to anything about what it takes to compete at a professional level in 3-gun shooting. And so we're out here at the range in a beautiful North Idaho day, and we're putting in some reps because, just look out guys, pretty soon you're gonna see this face accepting the 3-gun trophy of the world. So look out. Anyways, I really think you're gonna like our next guest. Not only is she stellar at competing at a professional level in 3-gun, she's also a writer. She's also a photographer, a videographer, and a powerhouse digital marketer when it comes to the gun industry. So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. So, shooters, are you ready? Stand by. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Best, and today we are joined with a very special guest who can shoot everything from pistols to shotguns to rifles to cameras and so much more. Please welcome 3-Gun Kenzie, aka Kenzie Fitzpatrick, to the Guns and Camera Show. Kenzie, thanks for being on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Loved that intro. It was fantastic. So yeah, I grew up around guns. I grew up hunting. We were bird hunters. Both my grandfathers loved guns, and my dad's obsessed with them. So, I felt lucky because you either find guns like way later in life and you have to kind of learn about them, or you grow up around them and they're normalized, right? So for us, it was a way of life. I mean, I remember the ducks that we killed was really what we ate, and if you didn't do that, you're kind of SOL. And then I went to college at Florida State University. So one day I just started to Google FSU and shooting, which is probably not a good thing to do in Tallahassee. Some other news things came up. But there was a rifle association, which actually, this is kind of like a full circle. I didn't know him at the time, but Jeremy Gresham from IWI, if you're familiar with him, he started and founded that club a year before I found it. So
Wow.
I almost attribute some of like where I'm at to that even being in existence, right? And to him. So yeah, I made the pistol team, competed in GSSF matches and Steel Challenge and USPSA, and then it took off. And it really, again, it's like just an accidental of how I ended up in all of this stuff, is because the range that I did marketing for and shot at had 3-gun matches that came, cowboy action matches that came. And so I was just blessed that they had it in the environment. And the addiction went off. And then a couple of years ago, I ended up started writing. And I have a master's degree. I love writing. I had to do a lot of that, but I didn't look at myself as a writer. And of course, with that comes photography. So that was kind of where I was like, okay, I have to learn this, not really a choice. And now I really do enjoy content creation, and I enjoy the cameras. I've progressed from a silly little Canon Rebel, to a nice Sony now. So it's been fun and interesting. And then of course, you're podcasting, I've podcasted forever. And so it's just a journey where I'm not really planning things out. It just sort of happens.
That's awesome. I love the life's a journey stories, yeah. Right? The way you end up places is fascinating to me, right? For me, the whole guns and cameras thing has been just like a one, randomly started for a gun shop, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And you get opened up to this whole industry. So going back to, did you compete in shooting competitions before you went to university, or did that happen when you started at the club?
It was kind of in the same year. So 10 years ago, 2014 was when they had the very first GSSF Talon Range match. And it was one of the largest in the country. And they ended up growing it so big, there was 800 shooter slots. When most of those are 200 to 300, and in a weekend. So that was my first match I signed up for. And then that same fall, because that was in August, was when all of the club shoots started to happen. So that was it was just at the same time.
That's awesome.
I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
That's cool. And what was your major when you went to school?
My undergrad was IT,
Okay.
so I have a tech background for sure, and I started in engineering, so that's why I like math and science. But then my master's degree, it's a long one, but integrated marketing and management communication. I did project management as a certificate, and my weird background, Josh, is surfing, skating. I used to study Red Bull, like go out to California every year. So like I have this kind of action sports background. Like I've been using a GoPro, I think since like the very first one ever came out. Attached it to my surfboard and everything. So I feel like this is just sort of a natural like end up of where I should be. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Because that's like a crazy. You know what's so funny though is like we kind of have a similar path. Not so much on the Red Bull action sports thing. I mean, I grew up snow sports, snowboarding, hockey player, right? Like
Cool.
snowboarding, skiing, stuff like that. Mostly dirt roads, so no skating, and the ocean was too far away for surfing. But snow surfing, that's what I was into. And but I also went to when I was going to school. I went for mechanical engineering. Got halfway through, decided not to, switched over to visual communication design while I was working for a marketing and communications department. So it's funny how, but my background with cameras kind of started with building early GoPro years, but with remote control hobbies. So putting GoPro cameras on RC airplanes and helicopters and stuff, and kind
Love.
of one of the interesting themes I'm finding with a lot of the creators I've been talking to is kind of this. There's like this foundation of interest in content creation, and then we kind of fall into it, right? And then we fall into our niche, which tends to be the gun industry, which is fascinating to me. So from when did you really start? You said you started writing, right? Writing a lot more. What was the position that facilitated the need to write more and then move more into the content creation with picking up the Canon Rebel, which don't knock the Rebels. That's where I started too. Canon Rebel T6i. Great. Use that camera for forever. But kind of walk us through a little bit about that progression. So college, master's degree, into marketing, I'm assuming, but I'm going to let you tell the story. So
Yeah. And actually, going back to college, I actually kind of forgot about this. So, when I graduated, I immediately started working at the college, which was the very first entrepreneurship college ever started at a major university in the US.
cool.
And I've always been an entrepreneur. I feel like in my experience with my mom, my dad, they're both entrepreneurs. I worked in their businesses growing up. And so like for me, I knew I wanted to do that. And I feel like I'm a very type A person of like I have goals and I know what I want, which is not what a lot of people do have, but then I also don't know where I'm going to end up. So, okay, going to college, graduating, and I started to work at the university. I actually ended up doing marketing, event planning, and then my boss bought me a camera and she's like, "You're gonna run a camera, you're gonna take photos at these pitch events and all of this." And I was like, "Cool, great." So actually I don't even remember what camera that was. So that's a no-no, but I don't remember what it was. And then I went to Ireland and took that camera with me and took a lot of scenery photos. So like that, there is like two parts to this because I've even gone to Yellowstone and Tetons every year now with my camera taking photos. So there's both. Um, so yeah, when I quit my job, 2018, I really didn't have a plan. I had built a side business of marketing and I had done my ranges social media marketing for years. I did it for 7 years actually in total. And I just started to grow my clients. And so I did that always while having a full-time job. But the writing came after I quit my job and I was like, okay, I went on to Fiverr.com and Upwork.com. And it was Upwork that gave me the shot. So Wideners.com, I still work with them today. They are actually based in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live now. But the reason why I needed a camera is because they would send me product to Florida. And I'm like, okay, I got to capture the photos. I have to actually do that because there's nobody else. So that's where like the very first like Rebel came into play. And then when I moved up here and started doing this for bigger companies and for magazines, that's when I had to really start getting an eye for photography and learning so much. I'm still learning so much, but yeah, athlonoutdoors.com, they're one of my full-time, like the full-time gigs pretty much writing. And like they had print magazines, now they're digital. And that's kind of interesting to see that space as well. So yeah. And then I've now learned DaVinci editor. I'm not a pro
Oh
videographer
my
yet.
gosh. Yeah, you're in it now, man. Holy smokes.
I'm in it. I finished that about an hour ago, my final deadline one video. So every article now that I'm doing with guns, because it's all digital, has a video related. And so that's been kind of interesting to have to do both. But I learned a lot about these guns beyond just taking photos, which has been really nice.
Do you find, I'm just curious, and I think I know the answer, but have you found that as you're growing in marketing, like you started, it sounds like in similar epoch as I did with marketing, where you're kind of still part of the old world approach to traditional print, traditional, like even web design, right?
Mhm.
To more interactive design. Have you noticed that as we've moved into this digital age, that the expectation for you as a digital marketer is that you fully understand the content creation side as well? Or do you feel like that's not an expectation?
So I think it depends on like what your client is or like what you actually want to produce or know. And so for me, I knew whether I do all my editing myself or whether I take the photos myself, I have to know it all. Like at the end of
Hmm.
the day, I'm responsible for whatever gets produced. And I actually would rather have a knowledge of it all, even if I don't do it all, because I could communicate to someone like that has to put it on a website or that has to do what have you. And so before I video now, I do write sometimes a script. I do a storyboard. I do a roll list. Actually, for one of my camera gals that I've trained, I have an A roll list, a B roll list, like what I want to see in that, and a shot list. It's the same thing. So now I'm every single like photo shoot that's really serious, I have to list it all out because I can't forget anything. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think having a knowledge of it all and knowing how to picture it together and also how to portray that or tell that to somebody else is really important because if you can't communicate what you need or what you want, it's not going to end up what you want.
Yeah, that's interesting because I found that in my experience that the if you want to be successful in digital marketing kind of these days, you do have to have at least a baseline understanding of knowledge of how the entire system works from capture to distribution of the assets, right? Because I'm not a social media guy. I'm still learning it, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to my understanding of marketing now, I so often rely on my understanding. So when I'm meeting with a client, I can explain to them, hey, this is why we're taking this kind of picture or we're shooting for this kind of video. And this is how it fits into your bigger marketing campaign, which I think is it's something that I think for creatives, especially coming up in the guns and cameras industry specifically, it is a boon to know that as you are growing and trying to onboard clients, that you while you're researching how to run your cameras and how to be familiar with the types of guns or the manufacturers you're working with, to also be familiarizing yourself with traditional marketing terms and techniques. It's just going to help you.
Yep.
Let's go into the world of guns. So competitive three gun in college, graduated, and that competitive three gun hobby or profession, did that stay with you from that point, like on the regular?
Yes, so I have actually a major match for three gun at the end of this month, and then my big finale match is in November.
Cool.
And I went full bore nuts. And when I say that, I give you a list. I've competed, like I said, in cowboy action, which is 4 guns, 2 revolvers. I've competed in precision rifle series last year as an amateur, and I actually like what's called classed up as a I don't know, classed up amateur. I shot too well, is what I'm saying. So I learned long range shooting last year. I've shot USPSA, Steel Challenge. I've shot IDPA in both pistol and PCC now. Yeah, GSSF I haven't shot in a really long time because that's Glock only, and I really don't care to shoot
Hmm.
those much. Um, so yeah, and then I love shotguns. That's actually my favorite gun in the world is a shotgun, and so I actually need to take time. And I schedule my year by the way for this. It's like I think 2026 will be the year of skeet and trap shooting, right? So there's different, yeah, that stuck with me forever. And like where it's not a full time like job, right, with the 3 gun shooting career.
Hmm.
However, because I own my own business, I understand marketing, I understand sponsorship. The sponsorships have come where I treat that as professional, even if I don't get paid in dollars, right? Because dollars in exposure, or if they give me product, that's stuff that I don't
Hmm.
take lightly. And so I have had to learn at the same time how to produce content, how to advertise their products, how to speak on it too, and incorporate that in everything. So at the same time, like it is sort of, I mean, I treat it like a job. I do.
That's awesome. So I also love shotguns. Have you had a chance to get behind one of the Gen-12s from Genesis Arms?
I shoot for them.
You do? You'd shoot for them? No
It's
way.
not
All
as
right.
yeah.
Look at that.
This is the
Beautiful.
new design too. I don't know
Yep.
if you've seen the new. Yeah, so this is my baby. When I told I wanted purple and blue, I had no idea what they were gonna do.
That's excellent.
And yeah, and they just built me finally a backup shotgun. And so where I'm going with this is last year my friend Brooke got into 3-gun. She showed up with an inner belt and shot everything of mine. And so this year she's shooting matches with me as well. And now that I have 2, it's like, okay, I got a primary, got a backup, and it's so much fun. So yeah, I'm spoiled, Josh.
Yeah, I'm jealous. So I've been shooting with
You can shoot
Genesis
it.
for a while, right? And I get to shoot the Gen-12 often, but I don't get to own one because of where I live, stupid state of Washington. So I no kidding, I have a whole plan to move to Idaho just so I can
Yeah,
get a Gen-12. That's how badly I want that shotgun. So I'm jealous of you.
I'm proud of you. Are you actually going to Corleone? Did I say that right?
No, you didn't. That was
See?
probably the best try I've heard, but no, it's Coeur d'Alene. So you're close.
Never got that right, but I heard the gun butter guy's going. So Austin's going, right? I don't know if
Oh,
Mason is too. Maybe
yeah, I'll
both.
have to track him down. So Cody and the Genesis Arms crew is in Post Falls, which is between Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. So it's about, for me, it's about a 20-minute drive to get to the Genesis Arms facility. And yeah, great dudes. I love those guys, and they're crushing it. So
Yeah,
that's
they are.
awesome.
Yeah, they are. So, but after this too, go watch Classic Firearms with World's Fastest Shotgun. I won't say who the winner is, but
I'll go
I'm
check
saying
him
who
out.
the winner is.
I have a feeling I know who the winner is.
And I did the trigger pulling, so let's go.
Right on. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about guns then, since we're already talking about it. So you have been competing for a minute now. What is in your gun bag right now? What's your favorite? What was your first? Let's just kind of let's attack the gun scene here.
Yeah, my very first. I still have it. It's a Gen 2 Glock 17. I feel like everyone starts with a Glock, and that's not a bad gun to start off with. I still have my shotgun too, so I guess I keep a lot of guns. My shotgun was a Benelli Stoker M3000 camoed out because it was for duck hunting.
Cool.
And I ended up adding a tube, adding like a hand guard rail type thing to put the match saver on, and I still have it and I love it. And then my rifle was a Dano Defense V7. I've told this story before, but I shot iron sights because I didn't know about scopes. I didn't know anything. I had bought this rifle like a couple weeks earlier, and I was like, I'll have fun. I didn't hit the 400-yard targets for shit, but I had a lot of fun. And so there's 2 divisions in 3-gun that I've shot. TAC Ops is where I ended up moving to, and I shot a 2011 with iron sights, and then Benelli M2, which was awesome. And I've shot 3 different variants of the Benelli, and now I have the TTI one, and it's just awesome. And then the rifle game is where I've kind of exponentially made changes. And so my buddy Scott knew how to, still does, of course, knows how to build rifles. And so he helped, and I still have it, helped me build my very first rifle. It's
Awesome.
white, it's Stormtrooper. And so my excuse was if I miss, it's the gun. True story.
I love that.
Right. Kind of like, yeah. And then because it took long range to shoot, it took shooting PRS for me to get better. And now I shoot a Stag Arms 3-gun rifle that I have modified to, like, I changed everything about a gun pretty much, even on the Genesis shotgun. So yeah, moving to that platform open has been amazing. I did an ambi safety with a different selector and 45 degrees. Like I know they have ambi, but like 45. But what's interesting is the hyperfire triggers go in all of my guns. So when I speak about competition too, is like I have custom built PCCs. I have a DaVinci PCC. I've got the TTI one over here. They all have these hyperfire triggers. So it's easy for me to move platforms when your rifle and your shotgun, your PCC and everything goes together. And then spoiled behind me, I shoot for Nighthawk. So I have the boardroom double stack 9mm with an optic, the Holosun 507 comp. So honestly, as you progress, you can start with whatever you have. And that's what I tell a lot of people. Same with the camera. Like you start with $400 camera. Cool. Now you're at like disgusting numbers of camera prices and lenses. But yeah, so as it progresses,
I got
it's been
them
really fun.
all over the place.
Gun bag. Okay, so what's fun, gun butter is actually always in everything, which it's even in my truck. Like it's in the center console of my truck. The pen oiler is in the most random places, like in the drawer of my desk, and I've had to use it on a door hinge before. So gotta have that.
You told them that, right? I'm sure they would.
I love Austin Mason.
I'm sure Austin would love to have a video.
Did you?
Of that.
I can't like drop the news, but did you see the news? Mason is engaged finally.
Good for him.
So excited.
That's awesome.
So excited. But Yeah, and the other thing in the gun bag, so right, like you have your ammo and everything, but an Uplula speed reloader, like I've been using that tool for 10 years.
Mm.
People are still finding out about it. I always have extra spare parts and tools, and so if you do not have tools, it doesn't matter what you what gun you run, you're going to really want to have a punch kit, screwdrivers, batteries. If you run any type of optic, I promise you, you're gonna want batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me how I know. So it's been really
I
fun to
will
see
ask
the
you how do I can envision. I think I know, but I'm going to ask anyway. How do you know to
I've
protect
had
your batteries?
I've had several mishaps. I've had a whole optic fly off a PCC,
Oh dang.
like nothing left on the rail. My poor EOTech died, and I was like, cool. So I'm just shooting it like kind of where I think it is, which on a shotgun's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
I left the optic on, to be honest. And then I noticed the other day, like I don't check my carry gun enough, and I finally checked it, and it'd been like 2 years. I was like, yeah, probably time because I use it every day.
Mm-hmm. So
Check those
natural
things.
segue. What is your everyday carry?
I have the IWI Masada Slim, and
Wow.
it has a Hollow Sun EPS carry on it.
That is not what I normally hear people say for the everyday carry. It's almost always Glock, either Glock 19 or Glock 43, or this any one of the SIGs, like the 365s or the yeah,
You know, that's what SIGs do, right?
yeah. They have that reputation.
They have some
They do,
problems. So I don't
unfortunately.
recommend that in your pants. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's actually yeah, I don't. Not anymore. I did I used to carry a 365, and then everything kind of started coming out about the issues that they were having with the drop test. And I was doing a active shooter course for over a weekend, and I have fairly large hands, and I just could not index that thing well. So I went to the gun store the day after the class and got a Glock 19 because at the time I didn't have the money to buy a more fancier everyday carry. But it's
it shouldn't be fancy. It should be practical. It should be in your affordable budget. And honestly, like the people that I get it, the people that are carrying these $3,000 1911s or double stack 2011s, good on you. But at the end of the day, when you use that, or if you have to use it, your $3,500 gun is locked up for
Well, and
who knows.
there's a big reason why. Like for me, when when I was shopping the everyday carry, I'm like, look, Glock has a reputation for running in the most adverse of conditions. They are not fancy guns, right? They can be if you want to modify them, but they have the reputation for being thrown in the mud, in the sand, and they still run. What we were doing, we just did a shoot with oh, it was in New Hampshire. I was at Kalashtober. Ken Allen Training Group has a little like intro 3-gun weekend thing that he runs, which is awesome. So if you feel like going up that direction next year, you should check it out. But shout out to Ken Allen Training Group. Ken, you're awesome. But the bays at this range we were at in New Hampshire are all sand. Like it's like beach sand that they trucked
Hard
in.
pass.
Yeah. And there was a couple of the guys running some of the drills, and they were crawling, doing the crawling in the sand. And one of them was running a very fancy double stack 1911, right? Went to draw his sidearm to engage the targets for this drill, and click, no bang. Like tried to work the action. It was all had sand everywhere in the thing, and he ended up getting like a zero, not a zero, but performed poorly
Yeah.
for that portion. So case in point, 1911s are great. Staccatos are great. All the fancy 1911s that are expensive are great. They feel great in the hand, and when they run nice, they run amazing. But when they don't run, they don't run. So
True.
anyway, that's awesome. Wow, where do we go from here? I was
Well, the
thinking
AK stuff actually was intriguing. Have you been to Clash Bash?
I have not, although
That's another
I
one.
want to.
It's a whole vibe, and I finally went this year. I shoot a Galil from IWI, and it's tricked out. But
Fancy.
the AK stuff, I've pretty much like dove head in first to that. AK Winter Motherland, AK Masters, yeah, Clash Bash. Honestly, the people in that whole sport are so funny. And when you talk about like running cameras, there's people that dress up in offensive clothing, which is great. There's people that
Yeah, that
they're
happened at
right.
this one too. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Yeah, very offensive. Like, I couldn't do it. And then there's guys that dress up in like theme stuff, and that's the whole thing with Clash Bash. They literally give away guns. I think like 100 guns this year, and it was category winners, costume winners, theme winners. I mean, it was hilarious to watch. So some of that stuff really actually is fun to shoot, and the community is really fun as well.
Yeah, and that was it was awesome. I got to bring my wife with me for this shoot in New Hampshire and to kind of expose her to the whole industry and the culture, right? Because it's hard to explain to people, especially when all they hear in the news or in the media is that the government's coming after the guns and guns are bad, guns are bad, guns are bad, and it's not about self-defense and blah blah blah. And I'm like, but you don't understand. There's a whole culture and an industry around competitive gun sports, right? Shooting sports that is very cool, very fun, very safe, and yeah, I mean, if you only get a chance to go out, if you're watching or listening to this, viewer of Guns and Cameras, if you have an opportunity to go to one of these 3-gun competitions or any one of these gun events, please do, because it will open your eyes to a whole nother realm of awesome.
Yeah.
It
And
was
now
awesome.
they have CanCon East, CanCon West. I do an annual women's event myself. Trayvon put on his Carolina collab weekend. So the more people and the more events that we have that are open to the public to come try guns and learn about our community, the more they realize that we aren't the crazy ones that people make us out to be.
Uh-huh.
We are just down to earth people, and honestly, a lot of people wouldn't even suspect that some of these people are gun people. Like, you look at a lot of the females that I know that carry guns, and they're so feminine. Like, you wouldn't think that they'd have one on them, and they do. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I love everything about it. It was awesome because my wife got to get on an AK. She had not shot a rifle since she was a kid, and it was like a 22, but she got behind an AK, fully automatic, got to burn it
Oh yeah.
down. And then after that, she's like, oh my gosh, now I get it. And of course, I'm like, all right, we're buying more guns. I'm stoked. Or at least what we can buy in Washington, which is limited.
Right.
So,
Right.
but it was. I mean, I've never known anybody that hasn't had a chance to shoot something that wasn't immediately hooked on it, right? And I
That's
guess
very true.
cameras, speaking, let's transition over to cameras because cameras are kind of the same way. Although I will segue, I just wanted to comment back on something you said earlier when you were talking about missing batteries and having all the stuff in the gun bag, the tools and all the extra stuff. That's what's like Guns and Cameras world. If you're into both, it's just like you have so much stuff because you have all of the things you need for shooting and all of the things you need for shooting. And if you're into Guns and Cameras, you get what I'm talking about there. So anyway, let's move on from there. So cameras, you started on a
Yep.
Canon Rebel. You don't know which one for sure, but when you first started shooting cameras, what was your first impressions? When did you kind of get hooked on it? And then when you started to research for your job, I'm hitting you with 3 questions in a row, so I'm sorry. When you first started doing it professionally, what was some of the first things that you researched to help improve your shooting?
Yeah. So number one, the painful thing that everyone's going to hear is that I never ran manual anything, right? It was all auto shooting.
Okay, let me pause you right there because I was gonna make a comment on this on one of the other episodes. There is nothing wrong with running your camera in auto, right?
Yes, there is now.
No, well, if you know, there is. They've created this stigma. YouTube has done this whole thing. It's made like, look, I sometimes still click over to auto, right? Like if I'm,
Do you really? I
I
haven't in
do.
years.
No, I like the other day I was like, you know what? I'm running 2 video cameras in a pretty active environment, and I was like, I need to jump on a stills camera and I don't know where my settings are at and I need this shot. Like I need it right now. And so I was like clicking over to auto, boom, 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 throw it, and then throw it down, go back to video. And part of that is knowing to trust your gear's ability, right? That's why auto exists, right? The computer is supposed to do it. So it is a tool that is there to be used. And anybody that picks on people for shooting on auto, it's like, look, start there by all means and then wean yourself off, right? Like you have aperture priority
Yeah.
mode, you have all these different modes you can get into that kind of help you understand each
Yes.
one of your settings. Anyway, I could go on for this forever. So I
No,
just wanted to make a
that's where I
comment.
went.
There is nothing wrong with that. I still do it. So y'all got to get over that
Wow.
stigma out there in the guns and camera world.
I've
But
been afraid to ever go back. Okay, so yeah, starting with that camera, which was so funny. Actually ended up getting just the regular Sony A7, and this is where I did start to do some research about like, um, oh gosh, it was like the thirds rule and how to use. I don't know the see. I still don't even know the lingo, but like how to use different props to shoot through or how to give a different perspective and different angles. And so that was really tough to shooting because you have to be safe. And there's really no telling what shooters are going to do at the same time or what the light is going to do. And what's interesting on the lighting stuff is like you have to work with what you have. And so that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to have to go into manual mode if what I want to capture is not going to be coming up on auto mode. And then I also learned way too much about lenses. I didn't even know what a macro lens was, and now it's like one of my favorite things to shoot with. But yeah, I still don't have a whopper of lens yet, but like running 25 to 70 millimeters, all I really need, and it works really well for shooting. I would love to have a longer one for some scenarios, but where the middle tier of this came from with that just regular A7 was I started writing for USPSA magazine, and every single match I took photos of every single shooter. And so what I would do is I would find, like with so many stages and so many squads, you didn't want to miss people and bounce around. So I found the stage that had the shooter retreating, so I could get them like with their gun over their shoulder and them stressed out in their face. Or I would pose on the side of a berm and make sure I would get the shot where they have to turn basically at me to shoot this paper target, obviously in a safe direction and what have you. So it was just interesting for me that I would have to go look at the layout of some of these stages and be like, okay, this is the best spot to get these photos. And those started making, into magazines for that. And then the shooters. Okay, so think about this. We shoot guns, we shoot cameras all day long, every day. We have probably thousands of photos, hundreds of thousands of photos of us shooting guns as well, because we got buddies now. But the people that come to these matches, what I started learning is like that was probably the only opportunity ever for them to have a professional like shoot 6 photos of them. They have real photos with their brass flying out, their gun in recoil. Like, I've been able to catch some bullets coming out of guns, and that was really, really cool. And I don't have the super slow motion cameras, but like my buddy Trenton that shoots Steel Challenge, he'll even get the 22 projectile, which is just fantastic.
Yeah.
And so the research has progressed, and we went to the Sony A7S III, and the low light was the biggest thing. Is like I just learned that with the shooting sports, you would shoot in shoot houses, you would shoot in low light, you would shoot in the woods. I mean, a lot of 3-gun matches, especially like have jungle runs, and so do 8K matches. And so I have learned so much about ISOs, so much about frame rate, so much that I don't want to know about. And now with the camera on the video side, it's the same thing of matching. Just don't even know the frame rate divided by 2 or whatever for the speed, Josh. Like I'm still learning. See, this is like so vulnerable where I'm still a work in progress, but I'm having fun learning along the way, and teaching others how to do it. But so yeah, having friends that shoot cameras as well for us to cycle through. That's where I think I messaged you. My friend Hector, me, and Adam will shoot on the same squad and shoot each other and also get the rest of the squad. And we know how to kind of get the action shots and where to stand and where we really can't be,
Yeah, and that's something that I think we chatted a little bit about before. It was just how important it is to have your photographer, right, or the person that's capturing the content, be somebody that understands or has a healthy knowledge of the industry, right? Because you watch somebody who doesn't, like this match I shot just last weekend, you know where to move, how to move with the people, where you can post up, where you can be safe, how you can be safe, following the 180-degree rule or whatever, making sure you're not going downrange, knowing how to communicate with the lingo, right? Being able to, it's hugely important for me to know how to pose people, right? When I'm like, hey, I want you to go to a high compress or a low compress or a Suli, or I want you to, to be able to communicate the poses, to be able to get them set up for certain photos. All of that comes with time and experience. It's not to dissuade somebody from wanting to enter into the community of creators, but the first rule I tell people is like, one, don't be cocky. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? Most of the guys, even the spec ops guys, if you're trying to learn how to shoot guns, they appreciate somebody who comes in who knows, hey, I know nothing, and is willing to ask questions, right? Check the ego at the door. Be always a student, right? And photo video is the same way. There's always something to learn from anybody who's creating, regardless of skill level, because everybody's different. And that's how I approach the creative process, because if you get too entrenched in the way you shoot, right? Same with running a gun, right? If you get too attached to one method and then somebody comes along and goes, hey, bro, let me show you something better. You want to be flexible and humble enough to receive that and say, maybe I'm not doing it the right way, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's only going to make you better.
Yes. I was auto shamed, by the way. Trayvon, looking at you. So that's when I shot a match with him on the same squad, and I handed him my camera. I was like, hey, can you get some of me so I can get this for the article? He goes, did you really just hand a photographer a camera that's in auto mode? And I was like, okay, so immediately, I think that's why I have not used it. That's probably like 4 years ago. I'm not kidding.
That's perfect.
Perfect example. Rude, Trey. Rude.
That's why you never assume. Never assume. I don't know.
Never assume.
Maybe
Yes.
it's an auto. But no, it's that's awesome. Okay, so I am curious. Let's see, where do we go from here? We talked about guns. We talked about cameras.
Well, I do want to talk about, if you want to, I want to talk about how important it is to also communicate what goes online and what gets published in terms of what's incorrect gun handling and what is incorrect safety stuff. So,
yeah, 1,000%.
My biggest frustration. Okay. My biggest frustration with, it's not always the cameraman's fault, right? But is the lack of the people that do shoot guns that do not have the knowledge of guns that end up pushing this into the marketing department, or they are the marketing person. And I've seen people shooting without eyewear at steel targets. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, I can't post that. I can't use that. Also, that shouldn't be there. And then I've seen where the gun is at a 45, like tucked in, and the finger's on the trigger. And I was like, oh my God. And then just like there's so many different instances where it's cringe. It's so cringeworthy where like it's very painful because the average person out there or the non-gun owner out there thinks that's normal, think that's correct. Like shooting unsuppressed without hearing protection, even if you are staging a photo shoot and you're doing something fake, which I do 24/7. I have my hearing protection on, even if the gun's empty, the magazine's empty. They don't know, but it's so crazy when this stuff gets posted online. I'm like, what? What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Or the stuff gets slipped into the fun thing for me is always finding the Hollywood slip ups in the action movies and stuff, right? But case in point, it's important for us, and I don't want to gripe too much about our industry because I'm kind of trying to change my mindset about because I don't care who you are. It is true. The gun industry, when it comes to content and marketing, does get suppressed and there is censorship. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but what I am saying is I'm trying to change my mindset to a positive one of saying, hey, it is going to happen. How can I be a better marketer and content creator despite it, right? But part of that is there is not an industry that I'm aware of that is under such intense scrutiny all the time from both sides, right? So to your point, right? Trigger discipline in photos, the lack of eye pro with steel targets, the hearing pro, everything of what you just said captured in an image. If you were to let that slip, right? Let's say one went out, like you're saying, you see it. You're not going to just get trolled from the uneducated people who don't know about guns because they are ignorant to it. You're going to get trolled more and discredited more from people within your own industry, which I found, I think what was it? I did a shoot one time where we had a gal and it was just one of those little slip ups where you're like, yeah, I should have grabbed it, right? She had a gun. She was wearing a plate carrier, full kit, and she had a gun in a chest rig here, and then she had one on the battle belt. And it was one of those things where we just grabbed the kit we had around and we threw it on her. It was kind of like, just get a shot. It's going to be great. And then that image got trolled so hard for being like, what does she have the sidearm over here? She has a sidearm over here. And I was like, maybe she's John Wick, 2 guns. I don't know,
I mean, 2 is 1 and 1 is none, but the stuff where, the optics are backwards. So I know people at a very high level. It is brutal. I've seen EOTechs backwards.
What's the most recent one was it the Navy?
Yeah. The scope completely backwards.
All right. Hey guys, we are halfway through this week's episode of Guns and Cameras, and you know what that means. That's right. This episode has been brought to you by 1156 Productions and by, that's right, Tokens of Valor. Tokens of Valor is my side hustle where I take spent brass, bullet fragments, and sterling silver and I turn them into one-of-a-kind, hand-forged, limited edition wearables for both men and women. If you're interested in having a one-of-a-kind piece made for you, find us on Instagram, send me a DM, and we'll get something started for you. In the meantime, I really hope you're enjoying this week's episode featuring Kenzie Fitzpatrick, aka 3Gun Kenzie on Instagram. We're having a great time in this episode. I hope you guys are too. So while I get back to training up my professional 3-gun skills, you guys get back into the episode and enjoy the rest of the stories from 3Gun Kenzie, aka Kenzie Fitzpatrick.
The other frustrating thing is like nobody sees behind the scenes, of course, and we can't really talk about it and we don't really want to share it, right? But I have been to major manufacturers' photo shoots and they have guys that have no idea how to mount an optic. They don't know what direction it goes. I've seen cantilever mounts on completely backwards. And, you know, at the end of the day, because our industry is what it is, you know, those people could do something where like they're posting posts or scheduling stuff or they're working on emails. But at the end of the day, they shouldn't be the ones writing the copy or shooting the photos. You know, they need to have, or they need to learn, go learn. It's just really hard in the gun industry to not have a background of guns.
Yeah, it really is. It's I would almost say it's not borderline impossible. It's really tough. I think I was talking with one of our previous guests about just how I had somebody that wanted to enter, and I'm like, there's just a couple of things you got to know. One, you kind of only got one shot of proving that you're somebody that's trustworthy and safe in an active environment, right? With live fire, right? They're not shooting blanks a lot of the time. And so, you know, your reputation a lot for the creators is pretty much everything in this industry. And once you've kind of arrived, you know, and have developed a positive reputation, you'll probably be successful. But it does take time, and you got to be willing to invest in not only the expensive cameras, but also into the expensive guns, right? This is something I want to integrate. So from a content creator's perspective, whose content are you like loving right now? Who do you think is crushing it in the industry with respect to marketing in the gun industry?
Oh, hands down, Jason Demo. Period. End of discussion. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, he's phenomenal. So if anyone wants to look him up, he is one of the best photographers. He used to do like wedding photography, and he shoots animals and like not shoots them, but takes photos of the
Guns
animals.
and cameras.
Right. And he does now. He's full-time with Langdon Tactical. And it's funny because I did a review on one of their guns and I sent their marketing director some photos today of me shooting it. And I was like, listen, these photos and these photos of the gun are not going to be Jason quality. So I was like, why do I even send them? She's appreciative. Like, I'm just making a joke, but like at the highest of levels, man, he's so good at what he does. And that's a brand that's going to grow and has grown because he's responsible and in charge of what gets posted in this imagery. And it's just, you know, when you look at photos and like guns are sexy to me, but like when the photos of the guns are sexy and like, oh, it's just like game over. I want, yeah.
You're like, sign me up. Going to the gun store. I'm going to buy one right now.
Yeah. And I know we both know Alex. Like I think Caliber Row. I mean, obviously if you follow her on there, she's amazing as well. And like I said, my friends, HCI Brian on Instagram, Hollow Sun Adam, those guys are shooting action sports. And so there's two sides, I feel like, to the guns and camera, right? Or maybe three is really the people that are doing product photography, the people that are doing the actual like stage photo shoots and stuff and on sets. And then there's the people that are trying to capture the one moment in time, one run, one shot, one chance. And so those are the kind of trifectas I see.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of what you just said and who you shouted out. I agree. And it's awesome to see. I feel like we have such a ridiculous amount of talent in such a small niche, right? And it just seems like more people are getting involved. Like I was talking to a guy that he's going to be tickled. I mentioned him. I'm trying to keep his stuff on the DL, but let's see, Robin Hood Research, I think.
I don't even know about this. Okay.
I'm going to pull him up.
Okay.
On this really quick.
And then I'll have to share a little bit about
Robin Hood _research on Instagram. Go look up his stuff. He has an interesting story. But we have people like this guy that are ending up in our industry, crazy talented, like multiple years of professional industry exposure in photography, product and all that are like ending up in our industry. And I think a lot of it has to do with just and I don't want to make it about this, so I'm going to try to not to, but it just has a lot more to do, I think, with the cultural perspective of the people in our industry. I think that's about as granola as it can put it, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and then his photos are amazing. I can tell he's obsessed with like peanut butter colors, right. All of that.
So speaking of looking at work, I have your Instagram pulled up right here. And if you're good with it, we're going to jump in and we're going to look at some stuff.
That might be painful. Go for it.
It won't be painful. I will say, though, it took me like 5 minutes of scrolling while I was listening to you to get to the bottom of your Instagram page. So we're at picture number 1.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
I don't even know what that is.
This is, again, I tell this to everybody who I do this with. This is meant to make you feel good and encourage you, right? Not to embarrass you, because we all have the bottom of our Instagram feed and it's way down there for a reason. But it is also Instagram. One of the cool things about social media is that since Instagram has been around, you don't have a better visual representation of your growth as a creative than this feed. So let's look at this. We're going to share the screen here. Okay, so I think this is the bottom. It doesn't let me go any further.
It is the Glock.
Picture number 1. Let's pull it up. Picture
exactly
number
what
1.
it is. First match, bro, right here.
Wow.
Yep.
That's cool.
That's pretty
What was
cool.
happening in this moment?
So you're shooting 5 targets that are paper, and you're having to shoot A zones if you don't want to add seconds to your time. Gosh, I look at the iron sights. I hate iron sights now, but and I cringe at some of maybe the tension in the neck of like how tight I am in there, because that's not how I shoot now. But that's
Oh, this is so good because you get to create. Yeah, you're critiquing your stance
my own
and everything.
stance.
This is great. I love it. Wow. So number 1. Let's just let's go through. What's this?
Look at that, Shane Coley and I.
Shane Coley.
That was NRA annual Atlanta, and actually that's where I met the gunny before he passed away.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
All right, we're just.
This is before I was really in the industry. Like this is before Shane and I have shot on squads together now. So yeah, before he passed away.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, we got a video. What is this one?
Plate rack.
Bing, bing.
We're not too bad. Yeah, I always miss one. Always miss one. Look at that. And
that's the curse of the plate rack.
I already know the flaw is when you see 6 plates, you should always go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then come back to your miss. So should have done 1 through 6 and then come back to 5 instead of waiting. You know what I mean? And when you call your shots, you know what you missed.
There you go, guys. Pro tip right there. So yeah, this is way down here, you guys.
That's my first 3-gun match, the first, then the lime green.
Yeah,
first 3-gun match. I had Blade Tech mag carriers. I had back pockets for the rifle mags. I did not have what I needed to shoot.
So no sponsorships at this point. This is all just you starting
T-shirt.
out.
Yeah,
yep.
T-shirt. T-shirt, Kenzie.
What do we got? Who we got here?
Those are first 3-gun match. I dragged all those 4 guys to shoot the match. So from the very beginning, I was getting people into the shooting sports without knowing that was going to be my career.
That's awesome. So let's talk. Okay, so as we're looking back here, right? Who's taking your pictures here for you? Is this just people that are around, or do you have who's your photographer?
This is the community, and this is where I wanted to mention is how hard it is to get content photos of yourself. So this is me asking for favors from people who are not photographers whatsoever. And I was grateful, and I still am every day, that I get a shot of me shooting, even if it's blurry, even if you can't really see the gun, what have you. And this was the cowboy action era, by the way.
Cool.
First belt buckle up in there.
Right here. Yeah. 2018.
That's right. I didn't even know that I was going to be good at cowboy action. And then that's the other buckle, the Georgia one, the black and gold. So there you go.
That.
Two for.
Hey, it says champion on there. Kenzie.
I won cowgirl division.
That is a cool belt buckle.
There's not participation trophies. You actually win stuff. That's my team right there. You're scrolling over now. The very first group of Florida State University. This was the Rifle Association. This was our team right here.
That's awesome.
Yep.
How many do you know if any of these guys are still competing or what they're doing now?
So I keep in touch with all of them. None of them compete at all anymore. Corey's in California. Robert's still in Florida. I still connect with Richie. I mean, all of these people have kind of moved on, but it's interesting. I don't know the statistics, right, of getting started, but when I was 20, I'm trying to think, 22, and that, how hard is it for you to be able to afford to shoot in your 20s? And I only did it because I was volunteering my time and energy to ROing, and they would pay for your travel, your hotel, your food, and what have you. A lot of these people just went to the traditional careers, which no harm on them. Justin's an engineer. Like, I still keep in touch with a lot of these people because at the end of the day, the firearms community, I know that I could probably call one of them up and be like, can I stay at your house? And the same with me. It's like, even if I don't live here or if I'm not here, no, I don't live here.
Yep.
Come on.
Counter cultural mindset.
Yeah.
Applies
It's
there.
so funny to look at.
What happened here? Did you take a round through the year?
So, actually, this was the very first assault that I ever had where someone actually beat the shit out of me and
my
up in
gosh.
the ER.
Holy
No,
crap.
it's part of the story. And I was too young for the very first time that I was raped, which was really fun. It's stuff that like has made me who I am and that I've talked about. These are the situations that it was actually a coworker. There's nothing I could do. Like, I literally was a waitress. That's it. He was a violent person. And so when I talk about my whys, is because I don't want people to have to go through this. And I'm glad that it happened to me, that someone that could handle it or get through it or what have you, and not someone else. So this is my why right here.
I got you.
Still have that scar on my ear.
Oh my gosh. Well, I apologize.
No.
that-
This is public. This is why I shared it. I went on a podcast to talk about a lot of this stuff. So,
Yeah. That's terrible.
You gotta talk about it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Of course.
And I'm sorry.
Look,
that
first
happened to
gun.
you.
Look at that on the
That's
left.
the
I
worst.
appreciate it.
Right here.
The Glock 43.
Look at that.
Look at that little tiny. I still have it, but
Hey.
I still have
Nothing
that
wrong
knife
with
too.
That's awesome.
This is
I
fun.
think that's the one thing with gun collecting that, like, I have some buddies that they're like, the gun comes in and the gun goes out, the gun comes in, the gun goes out. And then I have, for me, mostly it's like the gun comes in and it stays in. Like, I hold on to the guns. I kind of have this opinion where it's like, hey, the more I have, the better I will be.
100%. Oh yeah.
Cameras.
And the different calibers, different
Right?
types. Yeah,
yeah.
you need to practice. Look at that.
GoPro
Upgrading.
Hero 7. Man. How do you feel about GoPro? Do you still use GoPro all the time, or?
No, they are way, way, way too bulky. So like I used to actually have them on my hat, and they're so heavy that in one of the coolest stages I ever shot in Florida, the GoPro was on my head on my hat with the mount, and it fell off when I was shooting the shotgun at the very end. So I actually didn't get that footage, which was a bummer. And at the time, there's nothing really out there. Now the Insta Go 360 camera is the best head camera out there. They have such high resolution for such a tiny camera. There's like no weight added to your hat. I've never had one fly off or fall off. And where the GoPro is just so beneficial, honestly, that I take a lot of risks with, is I put it behind a target to capture the shots. I put it to the side of it to get, like, when I shoot ballistic dummy lab stuff, you can get it slow-mo, you can get it kind of a cooler angle. So the GoPro is more of the one that I'm like, okay, if it gets shot, it gets shot.
Yeah. That's a good call. I do the same thing. Blarney Stone?
Yes.
Yep.
My very first trip to Ireland was by myself, 25 years old. Yeah, and that was really fun. That was actually, like, there's a lot of photos that I still have of the landscape, and I went around the entire country. I did a lot of Game of Thrones tours.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
I have a lot of photos of castles.
That's awesome.
Oh, this is so funny to look back.
All right, so we're looking back. Okay, so are you ready? We're about to fast forward into the future
Okay.
here. Here we go.
Yeah, I like this. Let's go.
We're going all the way to the top. I think. Let's see if
A lot
my
of
computer
memories
can
in
catch
there.
up. Oh my gosh, we're not even there yet, you guys. There's so much. All right, up at the top. And oh my gosh, look at this. Helicopters. You got Jack Carr up here. I've been meaning to ask you about that too. I'm like,
Yeah,
Jack
so I
Carr.
actually just talked to him a couple days ago. He's got his new book out, and I met him through writing because of Athlon Outdoors. They had me out to film. We did a lot of giveaways with his guns. I got to watch him shoot his books, and we got to shoot side by side
No
the
way.
same pistol, which was, and it was
so
something
cool.
where I've read all of his books, so I was a huge fan where I had to kind of like fangirl, but also, and I told him that. I was like, it's hard to meet people that you really respect and look up to, and there's not a lot of them left, I'll be honest. Like, I don't think celebrities are awesome. I think they have no business in what they influence people to, to vote, to eat, to whatever. Anyways, Jack Carr is a really good human, writes really phenomenal books, but he also really, truly, deeply cares. Like, he sent me his book package when it came out of the
Cool.
last James Reese. Yeah, it's awesome. And kept in touch. Like I said, I was messaging the other day, asking about the new book release, like how it's done, because it was like a co-author type situation. And he's been doing his book tour and signing. And then even my friends were like, oh, we got to meet Jack, and we told him. that we knew you and all this. And he was like, oh, tell her I said hey. So that was really cute.
That's so cool. That's
Look at
awesome.
this, coming a whole long way. It's funny when you look at this, like I do have a photographer now. Like I said, I've trained my friend Kelly to take photos. The one of the shotgun, the Genesis on the right, that's Adam's photography right there. Yep.
Yep. Look at that.
He's phenomenal.
Like partial ejection right there, right in the moment. Boom.
Yes, that's Adam as well. I mean, we tag team, like I said. So if I look at some of the stuff that friends post, and then now I've sent photos off to brands that I've seen used the back of the GOA Goals Conference magazine. By the way, I didn't get photo credits and I didn't get paid and I didn't know they were going to use it, but it's my
But it's
photo.
your photo? All right.
It's my
Well,
photo.
hey, you got credit now. We'll make sure
Right.
people know. But also, I just wanted to shout this out. Kenzie, remember that lime green picture that we just looked at like 2 seconds ago? Look at this.
It's way better.
Way better.
Also
Not
physically.
better. It's just like, look
No,
how far. Again, look at the progression, right?
yeah.
Not only with cameras, but also with guns. That's what's so cool about, again, that's one of the only positives, I think, for
Yeah.
social media is, again, just cataloging, recording your history as you progress, especially if you stick with it.
Camera stuff was hard with like hard drives and batteries and backup gear and lighting. And I even have in front of me like the two handheld lights that I just charged. And the camera bag stuff, I have never, knock on wood, forgotten something that I need. I have my boom mic, I have my individual mic. I'm a type A human. You have to be when you run cameras in raw footage, guys, like and raw photos. Every single time I upload like a batch to my computer, I'm almost to max capacity. Immediately have to take the raw off, upload it to hard drive, get my stuff in the Lightroom, and then export. And then literally that whole file folder goes off. So the amount of time and effort to be organized is just as important as actually shooting the content.
Yeah, 1,000%. There's so much logistics that goes into it, right? That that is not realized where it comes to the after action stuff. Again, getting the cards dumped, getting that footage. I'm a double redundancy guy. It's like redundancy is something that's super important to me, right? It's like one of my nightmares to lose footage from a shoot. So it's like, not only do I offload it once, which takes a little bit of time, but then I immediately back it up. So it's twice backed up.
We do the same
And
thing.
yeah,
You have to.
oh yeah.
You want to talk about? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I've only had an SD card burn out on me one time, but once was enough. I had a whole entire 200 people of a company come out for a group shot of the whole office. So it was like a week of organization of saying, okay, at this time, everybody leave their desk, go outside. We're gonna fly a drone and take a picture. So we get everybody out there, all this organization, everybody's griping and complaining about it. We get the shot and they go inside and I go to dump the card. The thing turns red hot and does not work. And I had to go to the CEO of the company and be like, hey, by the way, you know how everybody hated doing that? We kind of have to have them all do it again because the card. So stuff fails, right? SD cards fail, you guys. That's why it's backing stuff up is important.
Yeah, it's funny. My camera gal one time, well, it was recent. She dropped the whole hard drive I gave her. She's like, I dropped my hard drive, but I has the footage. It's not working. I was like, cool. I got a backup. You're gonna have to come get it now.
Yeah, jeez. I had an event. It was I wasn't working. I was shooting the event, but there was another company that was hired to actually shoot it. I was just there focusing on an influencer. And the company that was hired to shoot the entire event lost everything. Like they were trying to hand off the footage. They didn't have backed up the entire event. It was like a huge event in Coronado, Southern California. They lost all the footage and they called me and they're like, do you have anything? And I'm like, I have some, but it's not, I wasn't shooting the event. So it was, yeah, I felt bad for those guys. I'm like, that sucks for them. So it's
That's
brutal.
tough. Yeah.
All right.
And now I think with like media events and like influencer stuff and what I've been going to, I don't know if you know Gavin, he did a lot of the unsubscribed podcast editing and works with a lot of the YouTubers, but it's interesting because he'd be shooting like action shots and then Ballistic High Speed would be doing slow-mo and then someone else would be on the video. And so like all of this, people don't realize you can't take photos and videos and slow-mo and different angles all at the same time. And yes, tripods are great, but at the same time, they don't get what you want. And so that's the thing is like when I go to events now, like I just got back from Gunsight and Thunder Ranch and we're all writers, we're all media. And when we write, we don't want a bunch of photos of other people in our articles about what we just did. And so it's very hard when you're trying to learn and take the class and try to get the content. It's like we have to tag team. At the end of the day, we are all in this together. And I think that's the biggest thing I want to tell people is like, help each other out. You know, even offer, like, you probably will never, maybe, like, you might not ask me like for help or like to take a photo or what have you, because like you don't want to bother someone, right? Because you know that they're working. At the same time, I wish people would ask. I wish someone would ask. Like with Alex, I was like, go shoot a gun. I'm going to take photos of you, right? And like my camera gal, go shoot a gun. And now they have photos of them from the goals, you know, range day, because I think that's just as important to capture as well, and not just you behind the lens all the time.
1,000%. Yeah, it's really like, that was one thing that I didn't start prioritizing until only recently, trying to get stuff of, you know, one, like I have nothing of me shooting a lot of the times, right? Most of the time of either or. I'm too in the moment. I'm like, my job is to capture the image, not to be in the image. Yeah. And so lately there have been a few times where I'm out shooting with my friends who are also photographers and in the industry. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey Josh, I got some shots of you. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's so cool. Thank you. Like, yes. Right on. I have something to post on my social media that's not just, you know, something else. Because it is cool to show, again, to support each other in what we do, right? Because we're not going to get it from anywhere else, right? And hence why Guns and Cameras exists, right? It's all about trying to encourage other creatives in the industry to know that they're, one, not alone in their efforts to become great content creators, photographers, videographers, marketers, whatever, but two, to just make them, again, just, you know, make you feel good. Because you know, it's not often, especially if you're freelancing or running solo operations, you don't have somebody to come up and pat you on the back and say, hey, that shot was exceptional, and let me tell you why, right? We don't hear that kind of feedback, especially if it goes out to, and I'm generalizing, so if you don't feel this way, that's fine. But for me, we try to like to absorb the table scraps of the praise from the influencers or the content we're shooting, right? If a photo goes out and you don't get a little photo tag on it, nobody asks who shot the photo, right? It's just like, oh, that's a cool photo. And then usually if it's an influencer for somebody, they get the praise, which again, it's fine. That's part of we're servant hearts, a lot of us, right? You kind of have to be. But there are parts of you that are just like, hey, it would be great if somebody was like, that's a great shot. Who took the picture? Yeah. And so now I'm trying to do that when I engage with photos. If I see EOTech or I see HoloSun or I see any of the big brands posting these superb studio shots, lifestyle shots, and I look through the caption, and it's like, you know, they have their little caption right, and there's no photo credit. I'm like, this is a great shot. Who's the photographer? Who's the creative team? Like, shout out to the creative team that got this shot orchestrated, because those people did the work, right?
I know. Like, and I've seen mine so many times uncredited that for a time, I don't do it anymore, but for a time I would watermark them. I was so tired of it. And like, okay, so for media, I would just ask. So you have to ask. And honestly, at the end of the day, that was really important. It's like Frank Proctor. I went and took a class with him, and he gave me the class for free in exchange for I wrote up about like what I learned and taking the class. And at the same time too, because I took these photos and it was cold and it was beautiful in like Pennsylvania. So there was leaves and fall colors, and it was raining. And he was like, you're really going to make me shoot this rifle in the rain? I'm like, yeah, because this is going to be like a delicious backdrop. And it is. And so he has posted, I don't even know now, like probably 8 in the last like couple months. And he's always tagged me. And even at the very beginning, he was like, thanks, Kenzie, for forcing me to do this. These did turn out really rad. I was like, yeah. And I think I sent you a couple to look at from that course. But,
cool.
You know, scrolling down through the photo stuff is actually really interesting for me, because that's how I find the other photographers. And I feel like the photographers don't do a good enough job, and I probably don't either, of like talking about their skills, talking about their experience, talking about who they are as well. And so that stuff's really important.
Oh yeah, we don't. We're again, like artists, right? A lot of them are artists, and a lot of, you know, most, not all photographers have super shining personalities. I'm just saying.
A lot of them are introverts, and that was the other thing, is like I force these introverts to come out. So like Kirsten, I think it was NRA annual. Someone stopped us because her and I were just chatting, and they're like, "Hey, would you girls like do a quick interview for us?" And like she was like, and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it together." And I was like, "She's like, okay, as long as it's together." I'm like, "Yes." And then I got to like, "Hey, tell me more about what you do." So like forcing, I'm an extrovert, obviously. I was like, I'm gonna adopt them, and I'm be like, "Let's do it," because she's so freaking talented, and I feel like you know, I don't know that she loved that I would say this, but you know, sometimes not as confident as she should be, and she should, because she's freaking good at it. Period.
I was talking to my wife about this, about kind of guns and cameras and creatives, and I was talking about the fake it till you make it mentality, but also the imposter syndrome that comes.
Imposter. I have that
right.
because I'm not a pro.
Oh,
I
I
don't.
still
I
have
didn't go
it.
to
I still
school for
have it
this.
too. I still like I think a lot of creatives deal with that, but I was realizing I was like, hey, because she went to this event with me, and my wife doesn't shoot. I mean, she's not a photographer, right? But she was willing to, at this event, I hand her the camera, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna start taking pictures, and she got some really exceptional shots. And so I was telling her, you're doing a great job. She's like, well, people think that I'm a photographer, but I'm not. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, they don't know that about you. They see you with a camera that makes you a photographer, whether you are one or not, right? It's like they assume that you know how to run that camera, right?
Right.
And I'm like, so it's not faking it till you make it. It's like, it's you are that until you tell them. They won't know unless you say, actually, I'm not a photographer, right?
Yeah.
You are by default. So that's something with that whole frame of mind that's like helping to grow the confidence of the creatives. Is like, if you have a camera and you take pictures, you're a photographer, right? And you're as big or as small as you communicate to people by your actions and your words, right?
Absolutely.
So it's we got some awesome people, and I really appreciate, again, you coming on the show and helping, talking through this, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that need to hear it, right? Where it's, hey, don't be afraid to talk about your skills, get outside your shell a little bit, and brag about yourself on occasion. That is acceptable, right?
And I really just want you guys to get in front of the lens more, by the way. Like, I really love it. Like, I'm telling you, when I was like, Alex, let's go. Get on the line.
It takes practice. I'm actually in the process of trying to call Alex out in front of the camera a little bit more.
I like it.
But again, she was great on Guns and Cameras. She came on. Everybody to date they've said, hey, I don't do this thing. And I'm like, you guys are great on the podcast, so I don't know what you're talking about. But, all right. So I got a couple more questions for you, and then I think we'll close it out. But the first question is going to be, what are you looking forward to for the rest of this year and going into next year?
I'm so excited. So I don't get to hunt enough, and I got invited with media. I do a lot of the media events where it is like a gun that's going to come out that's embargoed, and so we do the media event, we get the content. We, Thunder Ranch was for the Shotgun with Mossberg, and that was awesome. And I've seen a lot of my friends, I was a little bit jealous of them going hunting. They would go bear hunting, they would go elk hunting, and EOTech's even done that. And I had to start advocating and speaking up a little bit about like what I wanted. And so like even after the Mossberg event, I was like, hey, to the media girl, I was like, hey, just can you consider me for a hunt at some point? Maybe if it's even a year or two from now, or I don't even have to hunt. I would just like to be there, honestly. I would like to capture the content. I would like to, I enjoy watching other people shoot more than I do me pulling a trigger. And so what I'm looking forward to, long story short with that, is I am going on a antlerless deer hunt, literally leaving in 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
In Nebraska.
Congratulations. Nebraska.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yes. Living out of a tent. And I love this. Like, I love this. I grew up camping and Boy Scout, Girl Scout, all that stuff with my brother and my parents. And so, but it's a media event. So we got invited to go. And so there's Maven Optics and Hornady Ammo. And it's like all of the guys that I do talk to and email for work on a regular basis, we get to meet in person, and other writers, other editors. And so it'll be interesting to do that. And then I shoot a lot. So I've got the 2 3-gun matches left and my very first alligator hunt. Also,
no way.
Very
so
excited.
Now you're doing all the hunt. Like you're going to be moving into all the hunting stuff.
So excited.
That's going to be cool.
I do thermal hunting now. I've gone to Selmark Ranch a lot, and I have a boar skull over here I'm looking at. And so, I've gotten to do a lot of the night hunting stuff that I want to do. I want to kill a coyote. That's on my big to-do list. And we have a place that I'm going to do that this fall. But, you never are guaranteed the animal, but you're guaranteed the opportunity. And so that's what's cool. So what I'm looking forward to, honestly, is the shooting sports, but also the hunts. I mean, I really, really, really am passionate about harvesting your own food. And that was the other thing with this is, like, I actually get to learn how to butcher the meat and actually get it farm to table, like, immediately, right? And then next year, I don't know, like, I've set out a couple of goals, and I don't want to say it, but I'll say it. I plan on, it's not like I wish or I will. It's like a lot of people say I want to write a book, and I do want to write a book. However, I've had it slated for 2026 to do that, to start it. And that has been my project. And now the more I talk about it and the more I have it chapters in my head and the more I talk to people, they're like, you probably should move this up. You've got an idea. You've got the chapters. You've got the outline. I'm like, ugh. So this is me talking to other writers that have published books as well. So I think that's what I'm going to do on my horizon for that. I kind of know like the gist and the title and kind of the concept I want to write. And
So wait,
yeah, and then just keep going.
is it fiction, nonfiction? What's the?
There's it actually would be based around how I was raised, but I don't know how I want to tell the story, and I didn't know if it'd be an autobiography or even written that way. So I don't know. But I do want to write about like, yeah, the American tomboy, how I was raised, how the morals and the principles and the things, the values that I hold dear are going to be extinguished, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
those things don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to, the first person, third person, autobiography. I don't know. I just know that the ideas and the concept.
That's cool. Well,
Yeah.
I will shamelessly help promote you and encourage you to write the book. I'm not an author. I wish I could be a better author because I have a lot of ideas. But again, the whole fake it till you make it thing, right? Nobody knows I'm not a writer until they start reading it and they're like, oh crap, like this guy can't write. Chat GPT.
That's right.
No,
That's right. And then I need to get to not use ChatGPT.
I was good. Yeah, don't worry. I can't stand AI. I despise it. Honestly, I get it's a tool, and again, if it's a tool, use it. But I can't stand it. It drives me crazy.
I don't ever use it, and I haven't, and I don't think that the gun world and the writing stuff, it's never going to be accurate. It's never going to get it correct. It still corrects, even like Grammarly, but like it still corrects the incorrect thing to the correct thing that they think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even get into that world.
No, it's it's a whole thing. I right away when it came out, I was like, I have too many friends who are illustrators that just got put out of a job. I have too many friends that are copywriters who are now sweating. Right? I was just like, but I do feel like as a culture, it's being rejected. I feel like, but maybe I'm
yes
wrong.
and no, because I've seen like the stuff shared from the hurricane, at least in this world of like where Trump's here, and I'm like, that's an AI photo, or like this kid and a dog, that's an AI photo.
That's
like
true. The content stuff does freak me out. That I was trying to explain to my family, I'm like, you cannot trust your eyes anymore when it comes to what you see on the internet or on TV, because it can be so easily and very convincingly created out of pixels. So, all right, but we'd be here for another 5 hours if we started trying to unpack all of that.
Yeah,
so,
that.
Let's for the sake of keeping this curt, I should say, is the last question. This is funny because I actually haven't kind of closed out an episode with this question, but I'm curious to do so. So this is the kind of one of the bigger questions that is going to be a common theme for the podcast, which is, what is your oh shit moment? Could be good, could be bad. But when I ask you that question, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Honestly, the Jack Carr experience was one of them. And the other one was like being recognized by people that I don't know in a space that like wasn't like guns, right? And I'm not a big creator. I'm not a big YouTuber. I don't have 1 million subscribers. I don't, I am so far behind the scenes. And so I went up to introduce myself, like, hey, I'm Kenzie. They go, are you 3-Gun Kenzie? And I was like, holy shit. So like that is I've branded myself. I've built my brand. I mean, like logo, patches, and then who I am. It was just like, holy crap. And like the fact that manufacturers and CEOs and VPs, like, respect what I do. And yeah, and again, I'm not a big creator on the I guess the big side of like social media, but on like the writing side and the publications and all of that, that's really cool.
So is it pseudonym? What is it? Is that like your pen name? Is that also, is 3-Gun Kenzie? Is that consistent?
No, I just write under my real name with Kenzie Fitzpatrick. Yeah.
The
3-Gun Kenzie though just worked out because it was something I always wanted to do. I still love it and still shoot it, and it's interesting because so many people have changed like that, even their usernames now, because they don't do the thing. I have a friend, Glock Girl, on social media. She doesn't shoot Glocks ever again. She shoots PCCs, and she's like, and it's you got to know how to brand yourself.
Exactly. Brand for the job you want, not for the one you have. Yep.
100%.
I love that. Okay. Let's wrapping it up. Can you give me a few names of people that you could recommend for being on future episodes of Guns and Cameras?
Yes, I think I told you in writing, but I'll tell you again. So Hollow Sun Adam, HCI Brian. Honestly, Hollow Sun Josh is awesome as well. AJ Coots is another one that's doing a lot of content out of Pennsylvania. I mean, you already had so many of my friends on that. Gavin, have you had Gavin on yet?
I have not had Gavin on yet.
He, without cussing, is effing phenomenal. So I will hit you up. I know a lot of people that when you see the creators and the YouTubers and the videos and the things that are out there, I'm like, I know exactly who's doing that. And then I think if you ever did have ballistic high speed, even though they're not in the photography space, that video capture, there's not a lot of people running phantom cameras.
That's true. I was talking to Bryce the other day, actually, about a project for one of my clients doing some high speed stuff. And I was like, I should ask them if I could get, either Bryce or Adam, either one of those guys or both of them on the show. It'd be cool.
100%. And honestly, my editor, I was going to say Jacob at Widener's is one of the best photographers and editors I've ever seen in my entire life. Nobody really knows about him. He still helps me to this day, and he's running a camera tomorrow actually for one of my events. And
oh my gosh,
he's a great human.
I might have to. Yep. I'm like neck deep in projects that need to be processed. So, I mean,
I have a long list.
Yeah. Awesome. Kenzie, holy smokes. This has been such a great conversation. I so much appreciate having you on the Guns and Cameras podcast. I'm going to have to maybe have you, follow up with you, because I'm going to have you email me that list using your writing skills, and then maybe make some referrals just to help me with getting people engaged. Because that's a big help. One big part of our industry is networking, and it's about, relationships and being able to say, hey, like I know somebody. Also, on the flip side, you're plugged in with some fantastic people. So if you know of anybody that needs a moderately well-talented photographer, videographer,
yes, 100%.
just saying. Anyway,
yes.
Kenzie, thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have any in closing? Do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you could give to people in the guns and camera space?
Yeah. So my number one advice, and I say this probably on everything, but go start the project. Go start this thing. Go start the very first match. If you do not start, you will never start, right? Like that's kind of like a circle endum. But when people, say like, I want to, like, same with the book, I want to write a book, I want to go shoot, I want to take photos, and they never buy the camera, they never sign up for the match, they never write the very first chapter, or fail, go fail. So like, that's the frustrating thing to me is like with the women that I brought on board that now carry and then now compete, those women had more balls to go do the things versus the men that say this. And I was like, do you really mean what you say if you want to do the things? So go start. And I promise after that, it's way easier to be consistent. Starting the podcast, I'm sure the first episode sucked, right? Now you're like, this is fun. I enjoy this. Even though you have software issues, it's like you figure it out because you enjoy it. So get through the very first things and life is awesome.
1000%. I describe myself as a professional creative problem solver. That is what I do all the time. That is excellent advice.
You're really
though.
Good at it.
So, Kenzie,
thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, thanks so much for being on the show. You guys, if you do not already follow 3Gun Kenzie, aka Kenzie Fitzpatrick, on Instagram, go check her out. I'm going to put her handle right here at the end. Or if you see articles, magazines, or it sounds like in the near future a book written by Kenzie Fitzpatrick, be sure to buy it, check it out, read it. Find her and let her know how you feel about it. Kenzie, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you very much. Can't wait to see what more you create in the coming months, years. Thanks for being on Guns and Cameras.
Same to you, and congratulations on the podcast. Yeah, this is awesome.
It's a work in progress, but we're getting there. You guys have a great evening. This is Guns and Cameras, and we'll catch you next time. All right, guys. That's it for this week's episode of Guns and Cameras featuring Kenzie Fitzpatrick, aka 3Gun Kenzie. It has been an absolute joy getting to hear some of her stories, talking about the challenges of marketing in the gun industry with today's tools. We've talked about photography. We've talked about competitive 3-guns. And let me tell you, Kenzie is awesome. She's freaking amazing. And seriously, if you see a book published soon by Kenzie Fitzpatrick, be sure to buy that book, read it, find her on social media, and tell her just how awesome that book is. Also, if you don't already follow Kenzie on Instagram, I'm going to put her Instagram handle right here. It's 3Gun Kenzie. Go find her, subscribe, follow her, send her a note, tell her how awesome her work is, because let's be real, it's nice to know that you're appreciated. So, that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. We got a lot more coming, and we'll catch you next time. So I'm going to go warm up and dry off and maybe drink a nice hot cup of coffee because it sucks out here right now. Anyway, have a great day. We'll see you again next time.